In my opinion, big cubes are amazing. Over the last few months, they've grown to become my favorite events. But big cubes are super difficult to get into. Starting off, it feels like torture doing a single solve for over 6 minutes. It's terrible, especially when devastating pops can and do happen. And a lot of the time, it may feel like you're just doing solves and not improving. No, let's not do that. Let's make big cubes fun. Sorry for sounding like a broken record, but good hardware is so important if you want to enjoy big cubes. If you have a dusty old Wuji or Yufu, then this event will be hell. But the good thing is that good hardware is cheaper than ever before. These cubes are the best on the market, but these cubes are just as good and even better after modding. However, knowing how to set up your hardware is just as important. Tensions have to be exact and lubricants are necessary. Set your cube up with some weight 1 as well as Lunar and Stardust to make your cube even faster. Now, a mistake people make is tightening their cube way too much. This prevents popping, but it also means that your corner cutting is terrible, and over time you'll actually suffer more. You have to keep your cube just a little bit loose, so that maybe your cube pops once every 10 or 15 solves. This leads to a happier cubing experience. Finally, don't underestimate just how much a quarter or even an eighth turn can do. Don't jump straight to a giant full turn of each screw if you want good tensions. Take it slow, since if you get good tensions, you likely won't be touching them for a very long time. Tip 2. Don't underestimate your turning. When I was still solving above 5 minutes for 7x7, the biggest mistake I made was underestimating just how fast I could turn. My brain was super focused on figuring out how to make a bar and how to join an edge and all of that stuff. But I forgot that a big part of my solving was my turning. Instead, recognize what you have to do, think about it in your head, and do it as fast as possible. This will make you faster at big cubes almost instantly if you're at this level. Sure, maybe you'll get a few lockups, but those will be temporary as you get used to turning at this level. This trick took me all the way to sub 4 minutes on 7x7, so it's essential for big cubes. Tip 3. Memorize the pieces of a bar. First, you want to have names for each of the pieces. On 5x5, there are 3 types of center pieces, which we can call true centers, X centers, and plus centers. On 6x6, there are 4 types of centerpieces, which we can call inner X centers, outer X centers, and the last 2 we will call the obliques. There are 2 types of obliques, but we'll go more over that in the next tip. On 7x7, there are 6 types of centers, which are true centers, inner and outer X centers, inner and outer plus centers, and the last 2 are the 2 obliques. There are other naming schemes for centers out there, but this is the one I will use due to its relative intuition across all cubes. When making a bar, on 5x5 you want either a true center and 2 plus centers, or a plus center and 2 X centers. On 6x6, you want either 2 inner X centers and 2 obliques, or 2 outer X centers and 2 obliques. Finally, on 7x7, you want either 2 outer X centers, an outer plus center and 2 obliques, 2 inner X centers, an inner plus center and 2 obliques, or 2 inner plus centers, 2 outer plus centers, and a true center. That was a lot of information, so feel free to pause and rewind. But learning this is easier than it seems, and it is very helpful. For example, if you get this case on 7x7, where you have this inner X center, an inner plus center, and oblique, you will immediately know that we're making this type of bar, and we need 1 more X center and another oblique, which we can use to make a bar like that. This can help you when searching for bar opportunities, as maybe the pieces needed to make a bar were right in front of you all along. They just weren't obvious because they weren't joined together. The hardest thing for me was recognizing oblique centers in 6x6 and 7x7. Many times I've seen an oblique, tried to connect it with the bar I was making, and it didn't work. The first thing to note is that for any bar, you need both kinds of obliques. So if you're able to recognize 2 obliques and note that they are different, that means that you can use both of them to create a bar. Such as these 2, I know that these 2 are different, so I can use them to create a bar. If 2 obliques are on the same side, then there are 4 patterns that you should look for. If they are touching or exactly opposite to one another, then they're opposites. But if you can make an L between them, like this, or like this, then they're also opposites. If the L is uneven, however, then they're not opposites. If your two obliques are not on the same side, then mentally move both obliques to the same side and then recognize it. Simple as that. With this tip, you'll reduce occurrences of this stuff happening almost completely. Tip 5. Use Yao. It's 2025, guys. Some people may tell you that Redux is better if you're a beginner and that you should switch to Yao once you're an intermediate solver, but I don't think that's true. You should try to switch to Yao as soon as possible. At the moment, it's more clear than ever before that it is the superior method. If you're not convinced, then watch my video. Shameless plug. When you switch to Yao, make sure to abuse the good things about Yao. Spam TPS during centers and spam TPS during edges. Try and rush yourselves during these steps because that's just what you do in Yao. You can't keep the same mindset you had while doing Redux if you want to keep the same speed. Tip number 6. Choose the best edge, not the first edge. On 505 you can get around this advice, but on 6 and 7 this was a problem that I had in my solves. I didn't like pausing during edges, so in desperation, I often chose bad and inconvenient edge cases, where none of the edges were already paired together, but all of them were very visible. I paused less as a result, but my solves were worse because I did too many moves. So I encourage you to pause more. Find the edge case that is actually the best and most efficient, instead of just the first one you see. Edge choice is a big part of high-level solving, and getting into that habit early on is a good thing. Tip number 7. Have a scanning order in mind. By far the biggest problem I had during edge pairing was trying to find a certain edge and failing to find it again and again until I realized it was in the most obvious place, either right in front of me or in somewhere else that was stupid. This was because my eyes darted to the sides and around the cube randomly. Instead, scan edge by edge instead of just trying to scan the cube generally. This will lead to much more consistent edge pairing. This realization improved my times a ton and made situations like the aforementioned a thing of the past. Tip 8. Rotations are often better than lefty moves. On 3x3 and 4x4, lefty moves are easy to do and often recommended to get quicker solutions. But on 5, 6, and 7, lefty moves are evil. I can barely do them sometimes, but every time I have to do one, it's really dumb. This is because with big cubes, the regroup that you have to do to transition between righty and lefty moves is too substantial and takes more time than a simple rotation may. That doesn't mean always avoid lefty moves. You can get away with doing some LU moves since that only requires a partial soft regrip. But lefty moves are a lot less important in this event than with others, so don't try and force yourself to learn them. They won't make you that better. The alg that I'm about to show you is something that a lot of people don't talk about for whatever reason. I learned from female world record holder Kate Graham's YouTube channel. On 6x6 and 7x7 you'll find yourself coming across inner parity. What too many people do is they just do the normal OL algorithm with inner slice moves. I kinda messed it up, but doing that is terrible. Instead, do this algorithm. The first 6 moves are similar to the OL parity alg, just with a slice move on the third R move. Then you do the same 4 moves twice, just with a Y2 between them. So instead of L, you're doing R. And then you do these last 5 moves, which are really easy to remember. Tip 10. Watch example solves. There are a lot of resources in the form of example solves online. You will learn ways of completing bars and solving centers and edges that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. It is essential if you want to learn the best ways of solving all of these complex center cases you will run into during your solving. Some of the best big cube example solves are those of Felix Zemdegs and Kevin Hayes, even though they use Redux. Also, there is this really good playlist assembled by Sean Moran for 7x7 Yao. Kieran Behan has some really good 5x5 stuff. Just search on YouTube and you'll find nothing but gold. Push this video to 300 likes though, and maybe you'll make some example solves. Tip 11. Focus on the flow state and not solve times. Finally, when starting off in big cubes, you may find yourself drifting off in terms of concentration and attention, but that is a mistake. Your solves will be slower and more boring as a result. Instead, you have to lock in. At the center of it all, big cubes aren't about coming up with cool center solutions or look ahead or turning or any of that, but rather they pose a concentration test. Can you stay in the flow state for the entirety of the solve? Instead of looking at the times you get, you should instead concentrate on your focus. By doing this, you will improve extremely quickly. All this other look ahead and efficiency stuff only really matters once you get sub 3, but that's quite a while away. Optimally, at every split second, you should be doing something that pushes the progress of the solve forward. If you catch yourself not doing that, then you have to work on that. These tips turn big cubes from a boring chore to an exciting hobby that you can excel in quickly. In time, you'll realize why I love these events and why I think they ought to be more popular. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. Use code NOTME for 5% off of your order at speedcubeshop.com.